Prime Minister is finished. His moral authority is destroyed. Today was a total humiliation as Anthony Albanese paid the price for making Jews feel unsafe by his unprincipled weakness in confronting Muslim and hard-left anti-Israel radicals. Albanese finally visited the Adass synagogue in Melbourne that was firebombed 5 days ago, looking like he was on what police call a perp walk, the walk of shame, with Jewish worshippers heckling him.
Please stay for tennis. The Prime Minister condemned calls for intifada against Jews.
For us, mate. What are you doing for us?
Albanese then gave a very short and rushed statement and fled, refusing to take questions from reporters or the crowd in scenes of chaos.
What is your response to the criticism?
Prime Minister, if the perpetrators are here on visas, will you...
Off the cars! Off the cars!
As you can see, the visit was a disaster. It was just a ticker box exercise. Been there, too late, too insincere. Ticker box by a man who preferred to spend Saturday playing tennis. Tennis before terrorism. And only now flew to Melbourne to confront the consequences of its leadership. And I'll show you another example of Albanese's tin ear today. His inability to connect with the gravity of this moment. I mean, here we have a Melbourne synagogue torched as Jews face a wave of anti-Semitism never seen in this country until Albanese became Prime Minister. Anti-Semitism so bad that the US-based Simon Wiesenthal Centre now warns Jews travelling here to be careful, blaming the danger on the failure of Australian authorities to stand up against persistent demonisation, harassment and violence against Jews. So, today the leaders of the Adass synagogue introduced Albanese to one of the two men who'd been praying in that synagogue when it was torched and could have been killed. Albanese turned this near tragedy into a bit of joshing.
Why were you here at that time in the morning? What is going on?
I'm here every day. Really.
Every day. Really. Yeah.
Just sitting and learning and praying and connecting with the God. That's
4:15 is very early. Yeah. I get up early, but that is very early.
That's it? Oh, I get up early too. I mean, seriously. But Prime Minister, do you get up early to find someone's just burned the building with you inside it? I mean, the anger towards this government from Jews is quite understandable and now off the charts. I mean, many feel not just frightened by this anti-Semitism, but betrayed. Betrayed by a Labor Party that many once supported, but which now demonises Israel and plays down the anti-Semitism, or has for too long, often bracketing it with Islamophobia as if Muslims, of course, face exactly the same dangers. Josh Burns was with the Prime Minister today. This is a local federal member there, Jewish himself. His office was also set on fire and vandalised by an anti-Israel extremist. Yet last Sunday, even Josh Burns was abused by fellow Jews at a ceremony at the same synagogue. Abused for being almost mute as his Labor government sat on its hands. And on the ABC today, he sounded shamefaced.
When your community says it's taken your government too long, do you concede the point?
Yeah, I concede the point that it should never have gotten to this, and that right now...
And that the government is responsible,
Well, we're all responsible, Patricia. You know, I take personal responsibility as well.
Burns today did try to pivot and blame Opposition Leader Peter Dutton for some of the heat, accusing him of playing politics by not letting Liberal frontbencher James Paterson read out a statement written by Burns at a joint event to show solidarity to the Jewish community. Burns had a hoarse voice, couldn't read it. But really, give me a break. As Paterson and Dutton both, as they said, why wasn't some senior Labor figure there to read out a Labor statement? Why hide behind the Liberals?
Josh is a nice guy, but Josh lost his voice long before the weekend. Josh hasn't stood up to a weak Prime Minister.
Peter Dutton told James that he wasn't allowed to read out my words. I wanted to stand out with James and, and present a united front on this. And Peter Dutton decided that it was more important to play partisan games.
Oh, how dare the Liberals play politics with this anti-Semitism, says the Labor Party. Maybe. But such hypocrisy, given that Labor inflamed that anti-Semitism in the first place by playing politics with the Muslim vote. So I repeat, why should the Liberals help Labor's Josh Burns, as if the two parties are as one when it comes to Jewish Australia? No, they're not, and we saw that again today. We saw two senior Labor ministers, responsible in part for the Albanese government pandering to Israeli haters, to anti-Israel haters. We saw these two ministers just double down. I mean, at the very moment that Albanese was visiting this Adass synagogue, burned out, Industry Minister Ed Husic was on Sky News arguing that our 800,000 Muslims face just as much hatred as our 100,000 Jews who've actually been attacked with fists and rocks and in synagogues and offices torched and vandalised, have been boycotted and openly threatened with violence. But look, said Husic, 11 months ago, one person left a container of petrol on top of a car with a threatening note.
There have been incidents too where people from either an Arab or a Muslim background have been targeted in the last 12 months. I mean, there was an incident in New South Wales, as you may be familiar, where a bomb was placed on the car of a person who had displayed outside their home a Palestinian flag. That matter had been taken up subsequently by police. Now, is equally bad.
Not a bomb, a container of petrol. And then there was Foreign Minister Penny Wong today. I mean, last night, she chose exactly this dangerous, explosive, tense time to give another speech painting Israel as virtually a rogue state. She even bracketed with China and Russia, implying that, Israel was another rule breaker as it fights for its survival against terrorists. I mean, how inflammatory was that? How offensive. And then, having poured more of her petrol onto the anti-Jewish flames, Wong today delivered this patronising platitude.
What I would say to the Australian Jewish community is this: you are a valued part of our community. You are entitled to be and feel safe.
Jews are entitled to feel safe, says a senior minister of a government making Jews feel so unsafe that human rights groups are warning Jews, watch out for Australia. Watch out for the Australian government. It's weakness. And today, Anthony Albanese showed that this is a weak government that rots from the head.